Welcome to Biz Jet TV. My name is Fabrizio Poli. I'm your aviation advisor, and today we're going to be talking about pilot training. Yes, private jet pilot training. Interesting subject here. So we're going to go into the costs, how it should be done, how it's usually done, safety and all that kind of stuff. That's what we're going to be talking about today, so I hope you enjoy this episode. And if you haven't subscribed to Biz Jet TV, this channel is all about private aviation. I encourage you to subscribe and have a look around the other videos. The purpose of this channel is to educate you and to help you understand that the private jet is a business tool and not a luxury item. So that's all from me at this interest. Let's go in and have a look at private jet pilot training. Off we go. So today we're talking about private jet pilot training. Now this is a subject we haven't covered yet, so I thought I'd go into it as some of you have commented about the cost of training pilots on a private jet. Now yes, if you're going to train pilots for an initial type rating on a private jet, it is most of the time more expensive than training a pilot on an airliner. Just to give you an example, today a type rating on a Boeing 737 or Airbus 320, you can get a rating for anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000. While if you're looking at rating a pilot on a private jet, especially the large ones, the cost can be anywhere between $60,000 to $120,000. And that is the initial type rating, which allows the pilot to be able to fly that airplane. Now, depending on what rules you're training under, whether you're training under FAA rules or EASA rules, the pilots may have to do 6 takeoffs and landings in an actual airplane, which then that will obviously add that cost on to the training in the simulator. Now, the type rating course includes ground school and also simulator. So because of COVID-19 and that, what a lot of the training schools are doing now is they're allowing the pilots to do the ground school portion remotely from home. And some of that's done by computer-based training. Some of it is connecting via Zoom with the instructor in the classroom and doing that remotely. I think that's a very, very good idea. I think this will continue even after the lockdown and quarantine and all that kind of stuff is finished. Because it just, especially when you're traveling from Europe and you have to travel to somewhere like Dallas, you need at least a day to travel out. Then, if you got ground school and a type rating, that's 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks of hotel, that's 2 weeks of food, rent a car, whatever. It's costs money. And also your pilots aren't producing during that time. Well, if they're allowed to do the ground school, maybe complete it in 90 days and they're flying another airplane, they can be doing that in between and prepare and be ready to take their written test when they get to the training center. So that's the initial type rating. Then there's other training that needs to happen because the type rating is valid for a year. And then the pilot needs to do what's called a license proficiency check. And that is required once a year. Now, most of the airlines throw in another check, which is called the operator's proficiency check. And so that's usually done every 6 months. So what happens is pilots for airlines, they tend to go for training every 6 months. And the training includes usually for the recurrent, it's usually a couple of days of ground school and a couple of days in the simulator. Sometimes it can end up being a 6-day training thing. And then if they have to do, first aid, fire, smoke, evacuation, or dangerous goods, all those other courses that have to be done during the week, that could, escalate it to more days training. Now, if a lot of this training can be done online, which is good, and I can see that going online now, so your pilots will only have to travel to the simulator center for the actual simulator part. Now, other sort of criticism here is a lot of private jet operators, because the regulations say the license proficiency course check has to be done once a year. What they do is they just send their pilots over for training once a year and they cram it all in one. And they do like a kind of OPC. Some of them do it in the airplane or they include it. So they say, well, if that way my pilots only have to go out for 10 days to Dallas once a year. Now, I don't think that's a good idea. I think your pilots should be going twice a year, if not more. Bear in mind that private jet pilots fly a lot less than the airline pilots. Airline pilots fly like 900 hours a year. Most private jet pilots are flying about 200 to 250 hours a year. So they're not getting as much experience in the airplane as the airline guys do. And if you're going to for the simulator just once a year, all these things add up to the poor, which then bring in the poor safety record of private aviation, okay, which is 5 times worse than the airlines. So what I'm saying here is if you are there with a budget of $20 million to buy a private jet, you need to consider the pilot training as well. And do not, please do not go cheap on the pilot training, okay? Now also within the recurrent training, there are certain maneuvers that the pilots need to do. Now my recommendation is, yes, have them do those basic maneuvers and practice those maneuvers like engine failures, emergency descents, hydraulic failures, all those kind of things that are in the syllabus. Okay? But then what I would do is add on other things, like if there's been some incidents or accidents on the particular aircraft that you operate, have the pilots, develop a training thing. We used to do this with some of the airlines I worked for. We would, go through an accident, and then a training scenario would be created where it would train us to prevent that type of thing from happening or deal with the emergency in a different way. And that really, really is important, especially when you're flying private jets and you're going into a lot of places like, St. Moritz, which is in the middle of the Swiss Alps, or you're going into Aspen, Colorado, tricky airports, which a lot of the airline pilot guys don't go into. And also, the fact with private jets, very often you're going to many, many different destinations every time. Well, with the airlines, you're based, at one city, and you're probably flying 25 routes out of that city. And so, it becomes routine after a while. With a private jet, you're flying into many, many different places. Some places you've never been to before. Some of these places are tricky. You may be operating a Pilatus PC-24. You're going into a grass strip or whatever. So if you see you are going to be operating in certain tricky areas, design some training profiles around those airports that you can practice in the simulator. So instead of scheduling 2 days in the sim, you would do 3 days in the sim. Now, yes, a recurrent, on some of these private jets can cost up to $30,000. If you're going to be doing more simulator time, that price may escalate to maybe $35,000 to $40,000. But believe me, it's going to keep you safe. And this is really, really important. So that's basically my take on the private jet pilot training. It is more expensive, and the reason why it's more expensive than airline training is because they're just less simulators. There are less private jets out there than airliners. I mean, there are lots of Boeing 737s, Airbus A320s, Boeing 777s out there. There aren't many simulators. If you want to train in the Global 7500 or the Falcon 7X, there's maybe 2, 3, maximum 4 simulators in the world for this type of aeroplane. And so, the simulator centers, obviously, they put their prices where they are. So the cost is what it is. And a lot of people stop at that and they say, oh no, we need to sort of reduce this, the budget, this, that, the other. But remember, an investment in pilot training is an investment in your safety, okay? And it's all about prevention. So get your pilots out there training in the simulator twice, maybe 3 times a year. Have them do some extra simulator time, some extra ground school, whatever it may be. But don't go cheap on the pilot training, because that is really, really key. So I'd like you to post your comments below. What do you think about this video, about the pilot training? If you've got any questions, please put them below. Any suggestions, recommendation, or just, any comments. And if you haven't subscribed to Biz Jet TV, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel and give us a thumbs up. And that's all from Fabrizio Poli on Biz Jet TV, and I'll see you on the next one.